bending tubing to make your wind turbine blades. And you can use really any kind of tubing. Today we're using half-inch tubing, half-inch conduit. You can use 3/4 inch conduit. You can use half-inch or 3/4 plain steel tubing. It's just got to be something that you can bend easily. 3/4 is a little bit too tough to bend on a wooden bending jig like this, so we went to half-inch, which we can handle in wood. If we want to bend 3/4 inch, we'll have to go to a steel bending jig. To start out with, you've got to create the shape of your blade, and you're going to have 2 dimensions of bending. You're going to have to bend a couple pieces of tubing to make your vertical shape, and you have to bend 1 piece to make your horizontal shape. So 2 for the vertical, 1 for the horizontal. This is what our spindle looks like right now. We'll have one of the vertical bends attaching to this plate, one attaching to this plate, and then the horizontal tubing will attach to this plate. And then I'm going to make one more tab, weld one more tab on here to have a center straight section. So 4 pieces of tubing together will make up the blade, and it should be aerodynamic enough to push in one direction and cut through the air in the other direction. So you have to have an impulse, and you have to have as little drag as possible. Okay, so you can make the shape any size, any shape you want. It's just up to you how you want that shape to turn out. We're making kind of an aerodynamic wing shape. So what I've done is drawn out the horizontal tubing shape on the wood. It's this line right here, bottom line. This is for your vertical pieces. For your horizontal piece, it's a single bend with a much deeper reach to it, so this upper curve is for your single horizontal tube. So, the thing with steel tubing is that you can't bend it exactly on the line, because once you bend steel, it'll spring back in the direction it's going to try to spring back into its straight shape. So we have to overbend the tubing. So I'm going to use the upper line, the upper shape to bend my vertical pieces, because when I bend on this shape, it'll spring back to approximately this shape. So what I've done is gone through and right on the line, I've drilled holes about every 1.5 inches and tapped in some aluminum spacers with these steel 1/4 inch bolts. Here's your 1/4 inch bolt, your aluminum spacers, and those go into these holes we've drilled every 1 to 1.5 inches. That's what that looks like. So we're going to bend our vertical bend on the horizontal shape to begin with, and then we can bend it back a little bit to shape this shape right here, to follow this curve. So I've marked this tubing at 1 inch in from the end, so that inch will line up with this stud, this bolt, which is bolted through with a nut on it. These spacers are bolted through with a nut because I don't want those to move around at all, and they're going to have the most amount of pressure put on them. So we just drop this into this shape, line up our 1 inch mark with the first spacer. And you can see this is actually dropping between 2 aluminum spacers here to hold it in this direction, and then one down here to start the shape. Okay, one more thing we have to do is to secure this end. We're going to clamp it down so it doesn't pop out. Put a plate on there, put a C-clamp on, just to hold it in so it doesn't slip or pop out. Don't have to force it real tightly, that's enough to hold it in place. So then we take the end of this, and we just start pulling this around our curve. You can see it bending very gently around that upper curve. And you put in your studs every inch to 1.5 inches. It makes a nice smooth curve. You could get by with 6 of those spacers and studs, but you'd have a bending point, a sharp bending point put into the tubing. It won't really hurt it much, but I like a real smooth curve. So you can see it's going, following that shape all the way around and pulling it down to this corner. Now when it springs back, it's got a curve on it. You can see how much it springs back. I pull it all the way down to here, like this. It springs back 2 feet. So it just gives you an idea of how much you gotta overbend it to get your shape. Now I could push this even further if I wanted an even tighter curve, which will need for a horizontal tubing. I'll have to pull this even more to get that bigger curve on it, to get a deeper curve. But I think for the bottom one, this should be okay. Now you can see this is really easy to do, and it's a lot up to your eye and your skill of just how far to pull your tubing in the direction you want it to go. The most important thing is to put in enough of these spacers to get a nice smooth curve. That's the most important thing. So we'll take this out and check this bend against this line. So now we drop it into this curve right here. You can see it's got a little bit too much curve. It's close, but a little over curved. So we can put it back on the bottom and just push back slightly. Now it's starting to get more of that curve that we want. do is just drop it into here. So it's right in place. Clamp back on here temporarily. Now if we want, this is where you can really customize your shape. The amount of back bending you do can change the shape, so instead of a constant curve, you can get it to curve and then curve back in the other direction, so it has more of an organic kind of a shape. And you do that by the number of studs you put in, how far you put in your studs, and then how far you push this back. So if I want my curve to be big in one section and then narrow down, that's what I'm going to get if I push this back. So you can see it trying to straighten the tubing in here. That's why you need all these extra studs in. So I'm going to push that back to about that point. You can see kind of a snaking curve. We call that a spline curve in CAD. It's a spline. And there you go, that's the shape of one of your vertical pieces. You got your most curve in here. This is where you'll catch most of the wind, and tapering off to make the end of the blade is aerodynamic, and it'll cut through the air very easily way out here, which is where you want it the most aerodynamic. You got to feather it out to the tip, just like the blade of an airplane. This is kind of an airplane blade or wing section. You want to kind of mimic an airplane blade. And that's how airplane blades are basically shaped. A big section in here where your speed is low, tapering off to a thin section out here where your airspeed is real high. So we'll set that aside. Next step after setting this up, setting up our spindle outside, bolting on our blades. Next part is covering the tubing with material and then wetting it out with some sort of a resin, paint resin. And that's it. Our blades will be done.